Hello, everybody. You have David Abrams here along with our special guest today, Dan Martell, doing some awesome dance moves over there. But really excited to have Dan on today. It's someone I've looked up to for quite a while, someone I've learned a lot from. So I'm really excited for this interview. And just for those of you who don't know Dan yet, just kind of a quick bio background. Dan was a mentor at 500 startups and Highline, and an advisor to companies like Hootsuite. Probably many of you guys have either used them or know them. He's raised more than $2 million for his startups, Clarity and Flowtown. We'll probably be talking about Clarity today, and then grew and successfully exited both of them. As an investor in over 30 plus startups, he's absolutely got a slew of experience across the board. He's been an investor in companies like Unbounce, Udemy, even Intercom, all different platforms and stuff that we've used and love. So it's quite the bio, man. Thanks so much for coming on today. How are you?
I'm doing amazing. Thank you so much, David. I'm pumped because A, I love software, and B, I love using other founders' products, which we're doing. And we're talking software and using your platform. So this is fun.
That's awesome. Yeah, the good thing about Demio is that when we get to do these things, we get to eat our own cookie, kind of use the platform while we talk about it. So it's awesome, man. Well, really appreciate your time, and I love your energy. Real fast, I just want to take a step back on your journey. I know you're in a little bit of a different place now. You're kind of coaching and working with entrepreneurs on software and startups right now. But I want to take a step back in your journey and talk a bit about Clarity. Talk about the Clarity Day. So if you don't mind, let's go back and talk a little bit about that company. How did you begin on that journey? Why did you start it? And who did you really make it for initially?
Yeah, so I think all great companies, and if anybody just so everybody knows, if you want to go deeper on anything I say, Google the topic and my name on YouTube, and there's likely going to be a video because I've done over 120 some videos now. So on very specific topics, product development, growth stacking, whatever you want to search. But I mean, I always build companies after problems that I have, right? And what's funny is there was actually 3 different ideas at the exact same time. For Clarity, but that was the one that resonated the most with me. The first version of it was a call productivity app, like a call log and an auto dialer. So essentially I built it because I just sold my company Flowtown, which is a social marketing application company, and we featured on TechCrunch and all the different press releases. So I had a ton of people reach out. Right? I'm Canadian. I'm super nice. Like if I don't know, I think I'm super nice. You would know. I mean, I actually respond to tweets and, comments and I'm very, out there. So I had a ton of email inbound, people asking to pick my brain, and it crushed me that I couldn't say yes. You know what I mean? It's weird how I've had to get better at that because I realized that my time, now that I've got 2 kids, this is before the kids. So I just built this really simple tool. I just thought if I could just give people a link, like a Twitter kind of thing, that they could enter their name, their phone number, and the reason for the call. And then the idea was whenever I was free between meetings, let's say a meeting got canceled or I was commuting from San Francisco down to the Valley, I could just hit start calls and it would call me and then call them, tell me, calling David regarding, and then it would read me, shitty voice, doesn't matter, read me what they wrote, and then it would then call you, keeps my phone number private. That was the big thing. Didn't want to have my phone number out to the world. And then if you answered, we'd talk, and as soon as you hung up, it would go, calling John about, and it would just call the next person. I could just sit there driving, talking the whole time. That was awesome. Clarity. That was like V0.01. I mean, it was... I've always built tools. I'm a tool builder. I kind of consider myself I like building tools for myself that I feel other people might find valuable. And that was the genesis, but I mean, many iterations from that point forward.
So you started there, that was iteration 1. And then did you go to market with that, or how were you validating that? What kind of changed?
Yeah. So I kind of break it into 2 phases. There's the project phase and the business phase. Okay. So I think it's really important for entrepreneurs to call things projects, right? Because at the end of the day, just because you have an idea for a thing, you don't have to get all crazy, quit your job and jump in and, borrow 20 grand from your parents and just some bullshit. It's crazy, the stuff I see people do. My thoughts are you call them projects because it's no different than doing an art sculpture, right? It has a beginning, it has an end, it's got some utility. You may keep it, you may throw it out, you might give it to a friend. And, I was just more interested in like, could I solve this problem? And if all I did was use it for those emails, I would have been good. But, what happened for me is I think I had it for about 2 weeks. And one night I was just like wondering what would happen if I tweeted the link out publicly. Because prior to that, I was just using it in the email responses. So I go to the roof of the condo building that I lived in San Francisco. It was kind of like in the Mission District, so kind of downtown, like it was on top Protura Hill, so it was like on a hill, but looking over San Francisco. And I still remember the moment I tweeted it out, and I just said, need advice, let's talk, the link, and then hashtag startup, hashtag lean startup, hashtag cusdev. And so what happens is with the app is if there's people on the call list, it just keeps going. So essentially, like I saw the first person go in, I hit call, and I didn't know how many other people were in queue. So I just kept talking, and literally 30 minutes turned into an hour, turned into 2 hours, turned into 3 hours. And it was the most incredible experience ever because it was almost like chat roulette. Remember chat roulette? It was like, whoa, hey, but it wasn't, okay, it was like chat roulette minus the R rating, right?
Yeah, right. I was going to say that.
Yeah. And it was just, I was looking over the city thinking, how crazy is it that people have been following me for 5 years on Twitter, never talked to them, had an opportunity to connect, added as much value as I could in that quick conversation. And that the truth is, there's probably way smarter people in the city that have access to people and knowledge and expertise that the rest of the world would love to connect with. And it could be as simple as this product, since like technically it's using like blank time in your day, right? Mm-hmm. You just got to create a little bit of a new behavior or whatnot. And that was when I kind of started showing it to people as a thing and was like, hey, what do you think? You want to see this? And then people started seeing that I tweeted it out. So like Eric Ries saw it early because he saw that I tweeted it out. And then he's like, what is that? And I was like, what's this thing I built? And then he's like, hey man, do you think I could like, and this is where the payment stuff came into play. He goes, do you think I could charge people a little bit? And then maybe like, because he had an agent, so he couldn't do it for free. And then he's like, well, I don't really want the money. How about I just donate it to charity? And then all we did, literally, our charity component, people thought it was like super elaborate. It's literally an honor system. You put that charity that you donate your fees from, and it's on you to take the money from Clarity and write a check. Like we didn't do, like to this day, it still probably works that way. The company was acquired, so I don't know, but I'm pretty sure it's an honor system. And it's 100% flexible because they just write whatever charity they want to support in there. And yeah, that was when it went from project to business. And I couldn't sleep at night. Literally, my fiance at the time, now wife, I'd stay up till 2 or 3 in the morning working on wireframes. And then I worked at the acquirer because we just got acquired. So like every morning I'd like try to get into work before 10 a.m. But I'd been up all night and I literally could give 2 shits less about doing anything productive for them. All I wanted to do was rush back home. I called my lawyer, make sure I wasn't going to get in trouble. He's like, just don't do anything at work or on their computers. And I was like, check. So yeah, it became an obsession.
That's amazing. So was it the communication, was just the fact that you could give back and then people were really starting to latch on to this network effect of like just giving free time and energy and love? Like, is that really where you found the love?
I'll tell you the things that got me, and I don't know if you've ever felt like this. It's happened to me a couple times in my life where I got so excited. It was, I never get to meet Steve Jobs while he was alive, but if he had this all the time, then I have no doubt that this is why he was successful. And it was literally like my micro version of a reality distortion field, including on myself. I was so passionate of the fact that 1, it had a built-in network effect. 2, it served people that I cared the most about. And 3, it gave back to charity as a byproduct of building the business. I was just like, how could people have not seen this before? Like this can't, I was literally going, somebody's going to like tap me on the shoulder and go, that'll never work for these reasons, or that's already been tried and you're an idiot, or like, I was just like, it's too obvious. But I just kept talking to the smartest people I could find and be like, this is what I'm doing. Here's what I'm thinking. Da, 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 da. And they go, holy shit. So I remember there was a period where I could convince anybody that was like I was on the next, at the time Uber wasn't a thing, but like, that kind of potential growth. And it felt great. Then reality set in.
And what was reality?
And the reality was, I remember I jumped on a plane. So you got to understand, the timeline was pretty quick, right? Mm-hmm. So built the first prototype myself, started using it, got Eric, got probably, I'd say like literally, and just because I'm just fortunate, I know a lot of people, and I went to a lot of events. I'd speak at an event, and literally I'd sign up like 10 people at the event, face to face. Like, hey, you want to see something cool? Go to this URL, Facebook Connect, put your cell number, hit save, and good. Look, you now have a profile. You can take payment. There was no marketplace at first. Clarity became a marketplace, but first it was this utility in this tool. Mm-hmm. And one of the assumptions that I had, and I have a whole framework called the riskiest assumptions that I use to validate. So I was kind of following my own advice and building prototypes and all that stuff. So like I did everything right, but one of my assumptions was that charities would promote Clarity. So it would leverage their advisors. So every charity has like a notable board of advisors, right? So like, Pencils of Promise has Justin Bieber, and Donors Choose has Stephen Colbert, and Charity Water has Tim Ferriss or whatever, right? So people with big audiences, people, whatever. So I thought this is why I was so excited. I was like, charities are going to promote Clarity to their members to give them access to their advisors to raise money for their charity.
Smart.
Yeah, I was like, oh my God, how has nobody ever seen this? This is going to explode overnight. I got to get the servers ready kind of thing. And so I got on a plane, got the meetings booked with all those charities I just mentioned, and was high on my own supply, and started the meetings. I remember the first one, it was with Charles Best, I believe, from Donors Choose. And I show him the prototype. Like in office, I was like, go to this URL. He signed up. I called him. I left the room. I did a call. We're talking. I hang up. I said, check your email. He's like, I just got paid. And I go, yeah. And it was donated to Donors Choose. And I got charged on my credit card. And literally it was this like super simple experience. And I go, and he's like, that was incredible. He's like, so what do you want to talk about? And I said, well, I think there's an opportunity for you to monetize your advisors. And he's like, yeah, okay, but here's the challenge, Dan, is like, Stephen Colbert is a great example. If I need something from Stephen, like I pretty much don't ask him to do anything unless it could be like $1 million potential donation, meaning that I need you to keynote our gala, at the end of the year. And people are going to pay $500 a plate, and we're going to raise $1 million. I'm not seeing how Stephen Colbert giving up an hour of his time turns into $1 million. Like, I just don't. And I was like, oh, it never occurred to me. Literally, I did not think through the social currency required from the charity and the commitment, and and then I was then he's like, well, maybe if you did a contest, and I'm like, I don't want to be a contest platform. You know what I mean? Right. It's a different product. Mm-hmm. So that channel just went to, and I got the same feedback from the other charities as well. And I think I see this a lot. I get a lot of, I work with a lot of SaaS founders. They have a component, a give component to their platform. And many of them think like charities are going to just promote the crap out of it because we're going to help them raise money. You know what? Seth Godin, same trip. So did those meetings on like day one and learned those. And then the next day, my buddy Clay Bear got me a meeting with Seth Godin, who I mean, if you're an entrepreneur and you don't know who he is, then what the hell are you doing watching me? Go figure that out. Yeah, Purple Cow, you can start there. It's weird. Like, people may not know who Seth Godin is watching this. So it's such an interesting world we live in. But I got a meeting with him, his favorite vegan ice cream place. I've heard of him like blog about it, so that was kind of neat. Like, he's written about it on his blog, which, fun fact, no longer open. Kind of sad fact, actually. But anyways, and I sit down and he's like, so, Clay, I trust Clay. He says you're a good dude. What do you want to talk about? And I said, well, I got this idea I built, and I showed him prototype. And then, I was telling him about my business model, and he mapped out, he literally, and I moved a couple times since that. I lost the paper. And I remember saying to myself, like, I'm going to frame it. Because, like, it was Seth Godin's business model for my business.
That's amazing.
Right? I was like, of course this is going in my office. So I lost it. And, but in there, he explained to me the whole concept of charitable giving and economic, because he had done, what was it called? It was almost like a Wikipedia. It was like it was like called Lenses, Squidoo. He did Squidoo.
Squidoo, yeah.
Yeah, and Squidoo had a component of essentially people like kind of like Mahalo when they had pages, like people donated information about a topic and they got paid in like points or whatever. And he thought like people would do it if charity got the money or whatever. And he said, look, you have 2 books. You have one book where it's like, it's $4, and you have another one where it's free, and whatever you pay us goes to charity. Like people are gonna they're not gonna pay more because of charity. We'd like to think they are. We'd like to think that that's how the economic world and psychology work. It just doesn't. And he like gave me all these data points, and I was like, bummer. You know what I mean? So as an economic driver, it's just not. You literally just need to build a better product, and that's all that happened. I went back to the drawing table and thought about like, how do I just build the best product period that solves the problem and really dial in on my core customer. And that was the journey of building Clarity. Shortly after we raised $1.6 million in funding from guys like Mark Cuban and Steve Anderson from Baseline Ventures and Freestyle Capital, like just some baller VCs. And I had met them over the years because I've co-invested with a lot of them in a ton of companies. But what's funny is that was my second time raising, and I will say on a fundraising level, I thought it would be easier, and it wasn't. It was like almost as hard. Yeah, it was not easier. No, like doesn't matter what you've done. At the end of the day, and I think of it to myself, like it's money. Like people want to hear things, they want to know things, they want to see. Like it doesn't matter if you've done it. Like it's almost like, okay, let's start at zero. Tell me the story. Where are you going? What does the team look like? Show me the product. What are customers saying? It's
all about de-risking it for them, right? They want to make sure it's
like
that's investment of their money.
And I remember like, so, I help a lot. I mean, I would say fundraising is one of the like top conversations I have with a lot of my SaaS coaching clients that are in that world of not bootstrapping, but actually raising. Mm-hmm. And, with the ones that are on their second venture, I always say they get high on their own supply, right? They think it's going to be easier. And I tell them, don't be so ignorant. There's a process. You went through a process on your first round. Don't pretend like you don't have to do the things, right? Build the investor list, build the demand, I have 3 phases, like pre-marketing, fundraising, and closing. And I'm like, do the pre-marketing, like thinking you're going to roll in and ask for $2 million and get a check. You're ignorant and is disrespectful in many ways because
makes sense.
Yeah.
You think that you're more important than other people that have also done the same journey.
Because you did something that's any predictor of future like success. And it's just not like, the truth is so much, especially in software and technology, I think it's so much dependent on market, right? Like literally you look a 7-year rolling window, like what's true customer behavior, cultural norms, product expectations, like it's literally this moving target. And when you built your company based on what was true about the market and the competitive set, in 3 years could be totally not the same, right? Being early is just as bad as being wrong. So that's to me the only thing is that I've invested in. So out of the 30 plus investments, I think 5 were in second time, same founders like Sprig. Again, Sprig just shut down. So Goggin was the founder. He also is a founder of Udemy. That one was an awesome success, like huge return for me. And then he did Sprig, and Sprig was not such a but. Not because Goggin's not a great entrepreneur. Mm-hmm. So that's just the way it is. Yeah. But the market.
Crazy. Yeah. Market and timing and at some level luck too. I think luck plays a little bit of, a part of it too. Like
luck is always going to be there, but there's a lot of stuff you can index for to increase it.
Mm-hmm. That's true. So let's jump back to Clarity real fast. So you've raised, this is before you raised. How did you guys get your first customers in? So you had that network effect. I know that was a big part of what you talked about. That kind of
there was a little network effect, but not to the degree that I thought it was. People are not going to like the answer. I will tell you how I did it, and it was hand-to-hand combat. Like literally, the first 1,000 people, experts on Clarity, was me face-to-face, demoing, signing up, and supporting. Period. Right. Full stop. Like I might have gotten lucky and onboarded like 30 people from like some kind of like Facebook group or an email list of people I trusted. But I curated because at the end of the day, if you're building a marketplace, the curation of the supply matters a lot, right? It matters what you tell them. It matters how you help them build up their profiles. It matters on how they treat the inbound demand that comes in through the platform. So, yeah, it was, and then really it was just figuring out. I mean, one of my, if somebody said, "What's your superpower?" It's really like real growth hacking. I hear people talk about growth hacking, and I go, "No, that's marketing." Growth hacking to me is kind of like a combination between discipline, like a certain type of discipline, data, and then like product hacks. And I think that all three of those need to be present to do it. And yes, they end up having characteristics of marketing, like there's some kind of message somewheres and is displayed somewheres. Like that's marketing. But it's really like, I'll give you an example outside of Clarity, then we can talk about Clarity. I was talking to a founder the other day that has a app for to schedule old posts, like reschedule them, okay, in a tool. And I'm not going to talk too much because it's their market, and I usually don't disclose conversations, but that activity, right? And I know, it's like there's a ton of products like a Hootsuite, back in the day, CoTweet, and a ton of others. But it just allowed them to reschedule. So their client was essentially people that produce content that wasn't sharing previously posted content. Does that make sense? Mm-hmm. Okay, so then I just said it, like it came to me. It's like it's one of those kind of savant, weird. I don't know why my brain, because I'm a software guy in my background and I love marketing. I just say, well, essentially your customer is the intersection between everybody that writes at least 200 blog posts a year or maybe less, but it's a volume. There's a certain volume, kind of a bell curve of volume, and have not published those backlog posts on their Twitter profile. She goes, yeah. I said, well, that's an easy data set to get. Not only can you get it, you get the Twitter accounts, you can get the email address. So all of a sudden now you have a targeted list of potentially 200,000 people in the world. There wouldn't be that many that are 1,000% ideal customers for you, that have the behavior, have the pain, or maybe they don't know they have the pain that you could present information to. And all of a sudden now, all this other stuff they were doing was kind of dumb because you knew where the customer was.
Right. Kind of a waste of time on the other,
you could do all this other stuff and it probably will have it's almost like, content marketing. That's my problem with content marketing. And I do it very well. And it's how we grew Flowtown. It's how I grew Clarity. And we'll talk about that. I have a problem with people thinking because I write blog posts that I'm doing content marketing. It's like, it should be strategic in nature. There should be a promotions calendar attached to it. There should be a lot of upfront research on where's the market, what's the keywords we want to rank for, what are we going to produce that's unique and differentiated, and how do we get it? And then once we do that, how do we get in front of our ideal customer? So we might produce content over here, but when we go to promote it, we know our ideal customer. And that's why I said with the email list, I said, if you got that email list, and I've done that many times in companies, you can remarket them right on Facebook. Custom audience, upload the emails, boom. So if you build the content that's relevant to them, you can actually surf it just to them using Facebook. I mean, we live in one of the most incredible times in the world. For pennies, you can place a video ad on top of somebody else's video that if they're watching that video, that they're going to want your product. One video. If they watch this video, I can place my video on top of it, and it costs me a half a cent. I mean, it's crazy the world we live in, but most people don't understand that.
Mm-hmm. They're looking for maybe some generalistic way to do it.
It's I don't want to be vulgar, but it's just bull. You know what I'm talking about? It's just it's activity. There's no payoff.
Busyness for busyness sake rather than the strategic actions kind of moving.
That's the problem. Is to me, I want to see the thought behind a decision, not a decision. I think two people are like, I'm hustling. What are you hustling, man? Show me your fucking numbers. Show me, hustle equals progress. Mm-hmm. No hustle, totally. No progress equals not hustling properly. I don't know where people disconnected that. You know what I mean?
No, I totally agree. You have to have results that back up why you do those strategies. And let me ask you, you said something before, and I'm really interested in this. You talked about a product hack that you use, a product. You talked about the marketing side. You talked about some of the strategic angles. What would be an example of a product hack that you could use in some of that growth marketing you were just talking about?
Well, one of the things that we did for Clarity, so, once we kind of figured out the, kind of like the product side and like profiles and search and direct, I mean, it didn't have a search for 7 months, 8 months.
Wow.
I thought it was going to be a productivity tool. Yeah. I did not think it was going to be like a directory. I thought, charities are going to promote links of advisors. People are going to put it in their email signature, but I never thought like it would be like an Airbnb. Like people kept saying that, and I was like, it's a different product. Anyways, so eventually I kind of listened to my users because they were the ones asking, like, how do I rank? And I'm like, rank for what? There's no search, So this is like a really good lesson of like, you can have an opinion, but at a certain point you got to kind of give in a little bit. So
when do you do that? When do you give in? When do you have to give in?
I think it's if you're not making progress at the level that you think you could be. So at the end of the day, all I could do is look at our call volume, right? That was one of our core metrics. And if the call volume is not going up in a growth pattern that's going to sustain the business, right? At the end of the day, it's like you're a venture-backed business. You have to grow a certain amount. We were growing, but not to that degree. Then you got to ask yourself, all right, what's a list of the things that we could do? And this is what I call the difference between like, quantity versus quality. So I really think most people, basic shit, I think it's basic. Maybe you've never heard of it, and I apologize for calling it basic, is that product ideation needs to be broken into two phases. One is about the quantity of ideas. So this is like creative aspects. So getting the whole team in place and saying, okay, we want to move this number, come up with as many ideas as you can to move that number, and then going for quantity and like just letting everybody just log the dumbest shit. I mean, one time I had somebody say we should hire homeless people across North America holding a sign saying I wouldn't be homeless if I would have had clarity, right? Like whatever. That came from one of my team, one of my engineers. I was like, put it on the list. Like the difference is you need to go for quantity before you do the exercise of quality, which is, is this even on brand? Like, you know what I mean? Or will this actually work? Or because I think what happens is humans do that in the same time in our head, right? But it doesn't serve us because your idea about this might help somebody else put these two ideas together and it drives a different thing. You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. And that's ideation. So I don't know where I was going with this. Oh, that's where it came from. It was you realizing we wanted to grow faster. And this is just how I run product management. So like our whole team would do it. And we do like what we call a 6-up. So we wouldn't even write down the list of ideas. We have to draw them out, which is kind of like funny. Yeah. So they just blank piece of paper, printer paper. We fold it up into 6, 1, 2, and then fold it. And then I give them each 3 minutes, so max, with a pen. And then we would be on video and we'd go like this and like share, like this is this idea, this idea. What? Yeah.
Share like a user story, but how each one,
Yeah, that's each awesome. Idea was his own little like circle. And there was just something like, I studied product development by, I would hope, all the greats. I mean, it's one of the things that I pride myself on. And, I just got it from like IDEO, I think, does this, or I forget where I got it. It's like design thinking. So, and then so it kept coming up across everybody in the team, like build a directory, build a search. And launched the search, tripled our growth overnight. I mean, it's just basic stuff. Triple. I mean, yeah, literally, there was probably 3 moments of this in the business. Like, growth looks funny. As example, go look at the price of Bitcoin. Price of Bitcoin, I believe at today's point, it could be 0. It doesn't matter when you watch this. I don't know. Could be it's 5,000 US, right? Or 4,800. And if you look at the growth curve, it's very like, but it looks like a hockey stick. Yeah, there's actually like peaks and valleys, but over time, in the grand scheme, it's hard to see that. And I would say we probably had 3 of those in Clarity for different things we launched.
Mm-hmm. What were those 3? The search?
For sure, search. Oh, second one was firing. So one of the things that we did, I could have handled it better. This is definitely something I didn't handle good. We essentially fired experts. So when Clarity first launched, when you signed up, you were both somebody that could get advice and give advice, right? Because it was a utility, right? It was like a Twitter account. Like I wasn't going to say like only you can post content and you guys can only consume. I was like, ta-da, you can do both because it didn't interfere. But as soon as we went to a directory, And at first, everybody that ever signed up was an expert. It clearly made the search result crappy, right? It was okay if you knew exactly who you want to talk to, and it was really bad if you just searched a topic, right? Mm-hmm. So that was a big effort. So at the time, we probably had about 5,000 experts. And I'm pretty sure, well, we ended up doing some kind of like initial pass where it was like, if they don't have the term CEO, founder, executive, or something like that, then take them off. And if they want to reapply, they could. But by a default first pass, we're just going to take them out of the expert directory. And then I had to send the emails. And I sent them, what I would have done differently is I would have sent them in batches so I could like test my messaging. I would have sent like 200, test the message, 500, like see what response, because that's what I didn't have. So I just sent it to like, 4,000 people. And one guy right off like that replied and said, wow, I feel like I just got punched in the feeling. Oh, you know what I mean? And like went on to then describe why that was a really not cool thing that we did. And you know what? He's 100% right. But startup world is so tough because it's like you have the idea, you need to just get it done to move on to the good stuff. And yet if you got to like finesse all these things, which you should, but it's like, what's the balance of speed versus like just ripping the Band-Aid off, right? Like we forget in our little, startup-y ivory towers that we work in, AKA our parents' basements and our garages, that to our users, they kind of look up to us, right? Mm-hmm. Like they see these things we've built and they think there's like these well-formed companies behind the scenes and everybody's a professional and there's clearly like strategy meetings and they expect a certain level of finesse. And then if you come off and you're just like an email and they log in and it's all changed, they're just like, well, that's not cool. Like,
right. And they put trust there and stuff like that.
Yeah. And then they're like, well, what else are you going to change? Are you going to change the split on the revenue, or are you going to ban me? I mean, Twitter ran into this when all of a sudden they cut off API access for a lot of the apps, right? Mm-hmm. And then people say, you know what, we're no longer developing for Twitter. F them. And Facebook got a huge upside from that, and I think, again, every mistake you make, but I will say, so side effect, triple the growth. Like, boom, all of a sudden the search to call ratio went through the roof because we had a better search result.
And it was just quality, just purely based on the quality of the
search engine results page. It's literally, one of the big things I spent a lot of time on was how do you let people search, filter, search, like literally discover is a big part of any kind of product that has that kind of component to it.
Mm-hmm. Awesome. Well, I think that's really, we only talked about two. What was the third one, by the way? What was the third growth?
This one's a good one. I'll share it with you guys. Here's the deal. For a marketplace, for the most part, it all depends. There's kind of three different iterations of marketplaces. As I said, if you want any deeper info, just search marketplace, Dan Martell, and you'll find. But the big thing is like you set the price or they set the price, right? Mm-hmm. So when they set the price, then the benefit is, so Fiverr sets the price, right? Uber sets the price. Airbnb, the host sets the price. The benefit of that model of the marketplace is that then there's an incentive for the supply side to promote their profile, right? Because in doing so, they get more volume at the price. And they have an incentive to change their price to meet supply and demand, right? So if they want to get more bookings or they have liquidity, they'll like reduce their price, share it on all their accounts, and then that's good to drive more awareness to your platform. So once we dialed in kind of like onboarding experts, so we like split, so we had search, we had profiles, we split the application of experts to seekers. Then it was really about just like, how do we fill out all these other categories of, because one thing we built, well, this is, again, product growth hack. You want to talk about product? This is what we did. And this is the thing that I felt the most proud of that we built. Super cool shit. So if you think about it, man, I could totally nerd out for a lot longer than the time we got, but I'm going to try to keep it short. What I wanted to build was a self-growing marketplace. And I know this is SaaS, and we did have a SaaS component called Clarity Live we can talk about, which was like kind of like a bundled preset calls, blah, blah, blah thing. But if you think about it, if I search for something on Clarity and there's no supply, that told me like the demand, because I always thought as a marketplace is very like a biology thing. It's like you're building a person, technically. It's like an organism. So if somebody searches, there's no supply, that tells me that somebody wants this and there's no thing. I got to go get some, right? So, and then how would you rank order the amount of energy you spend on things that have no search result? You do it based on volume, right? So like if all of a sudden, and this is interesting because I had this vision where it would be dynamic, because based on what's happening in the news, all of a sudden maybe Bitcoin, boom, Bitcoin goes, but I don't know what the next Bitcoin could be. I didn't know Ethereum was going to come out of nowhere. So it's like all of a sudden Ethereum. So like I didn't want to have somebody having to manually track this. I wanted to build a system. So that was on the first side. Like how do we rank, prioritize demand on certain things? Second thing was, how do we go and get experts from on those topics out in the world into our system? So if I asked you, where would you go to get verified experts? What platforms would you go to?
Right now, where would I go?
Yeah, like if you wanted to get advice on stuff, like what?
Well, I would go to, first of all, now I'd go to Clarity, but I would have to go to things like LinkedIn or like John just said, SlideShare, YouTube, Facebook groups.
So John's cheating because he's seen me talk about this. So John, I know you've
Thanks,
seen
John.
me share this idea. The other one is like Quora. People say Quora. See, he knows.
There you go.
He knows what's down.
Yeah,
but I love that.
too.
Yeah, Quora, LinkedIn, forums. I would get, advanced Google searches is another one. YouTube, right? So what we discovered, and we tried. I mean, if you've ever tried to build a scraper for LinkedIn, and it's illegal, just so you know. I'm not saying that I did. Well, I just said I did. I'm not saying you should, but they're tough, and they're probably the hardest. But yeah, there's a bunch of other ones. And then one day we just discovered SlideShare, and all of a sudden we realized that if you search a topic like Facebook marketing, there's not only who has the most views on a slide on that exact topic based on the title matching that search, that if you go to the last slide on every presentation, what do you think's listed?
Their contact information.
Yeah,
right?
like the hardest part to figure out, like reverse engineering email addresses from a LinkedIn account or a YouTube account is a little tougher. So at first, and again, this is the process I want people to understand, is you always go manual first. Okay. So the way I do any growth hack, it's like you create the experiment and you say, what's the least amount of energy? Like it's never development, ideally. Mm-hmm. It's usually some manual process, from a 500 email test to a click-through analysis to a Facebook ad, with a click analysis. Like you want to kind of, the riskiest assumption framework, I teach kind of like how to do that. But in our context, it was like, okay, so it's SlideShare. So I did the first one. So like I searched a topic and emailed all those people. I researched it, I emailed them. I started to put together a system, and I got faster and faster at it. And I tweaked the copy in the email, and I kept changing it to get almost like 80, 90% response rate, right? Because essentially this is what happened is we got to the point where we built automation, meaning that, so Dan was phase one, because I ran marketing essentially at Clarity, me and my team. And then, so I tested it, built out the system. Then I brought in some distributed team members, AKA $3 an hour Philippine VAs. And I gave them the recordings of me doing it, so I didn't have to train them. So that's another thing. You should record a lot of the stuff you do. I use Cloud App, is really good for that. You can use Jing or whatever you want to use. And then I sent that, so it brought on like 3 people, and they kept doing it, and we just iterated and tested in quality and whatever. And then eventually I brought in one of our engineers, Scott, and said, here's my system, automate it.
Nice.
And Scott sat there for 6 weeks and just was like, and then finally came out of the dungeon and he said, it is now finished. And I was like, show me. And it was called Bonjour, because that's French for hello, which I just thought was funny. And we scaled to 50,000 experts in like 5 months.
That's insanely awesome.
So I mean, again, it's growth hacks. It's like thinking about where's the audience for the thing and how do I insert. I mean, it's no different than, all the famous ones people talk about, like Dropbox with the viral referral link, Airbnb with posting to Craigslist. Again, I work in B2B context more so than anything right now. And like a lot of people know, what's the HR app that blew up and then the founder got kicked out recently?
Zenefits?
Zenefits. So Zenefits, most people don't realize is that what they did was he calls map their world. Essentially, they built bots to scrape the shit out of and built a lead database, essentially a CRM that they would harvest from, right? So and that's a good way of doing it if you have kind of SDR outbound salespeople. You use a really, you essentially map the world of your customer. So you say your ideal customer is an SMB business owner with this kind of characteristics, with this kind of revenue band, and you try to get as many of those active accounts as possible, and then you build kind of an email automation system with an SDR, with an account exec process, demo to onboarding if your pricing point supports it, and that'll get you a Zenefits outcome. But it's really no different. Like there's an element that's like traditional marketing, and there's an element that's traditional sales, but how you get to that automated aspect that's the creative part that I really enjoy.
Mm-hmm. So a lot of it sounds like is really be dialed in on your avatar, know who that customer is, be super specific on it.
Yeah. People that don't know that's why they're struggling. Positioning is everything. Yeah.
Yeah. So it's understanding them, positioning, and then strategically dialing in.
So just for an example, I'll give you guys a real world example. For clarity, I knew that if you use Evernote and you were an entrepreneur, you were very likely to use Clarity.
Oh, that's awesome. How did you guys just run metrics from talking to people? How'd you learn that stuff? How'd you learn
it's crazy. It's very scientific. I pick up the phone and I call them I ask them. So I believe there's three things. It's the insight. It's called the core customer framework that I teach. And it's read, go, and use. Okay. What do you read? Where do you go with your feet? Where do you vote with your feet? Events, seminars, etc. And what tools do you use? And if you have 100 great customers and you ask them those three questions, you will find your 80-20, and that will be your marketing targeting on Facebook, your growth hacking filter list. You know what I mean? Like all these crazy ideas. Then you got to like filter out the good ones. It's like, what can we use out of these answers to like rank order all those ideas? Did the same thing at Udemy. I mean, I came in, Udemy brought me in to help grow their team. So what happened with Udemy is an interesting one. They, again, not SaaS, marketplace, whatever. It's all the same stuff. Like, I mean, marketing is marketing. And they were putting together a growth team. And they asked me to come in as a formal advisor. And I looked at the business and I said, I want to invest. So I usually never invest without being first money in. That was the only time I've ever done it. And I'll probably never do it again because it was a perfect storm of I had free time. I liked the founders. I knew for them for a while. And I knew I was also coming in with my own strategic advice to support the investment. So I got equity, and so I invested and I became an advisor. And I just walked them through a similar process that I'm sharing with you guys to build up their growth. And it was just testing different channels, data, interface. I mean, I would even do biz dev coaching with their sales guy because he didn't like. I came from an enterprise sales background. It's weird. I have this very unique background of writing code in software. I care deeply about pixels and product experiences, as well as enterprise sales of Fortune 500 companies. So I understand how to do complex sales with multi-stakeholders and multi-threading accounts. And so I can, when it comes to growth, being able to test those quickly, that's why I grow fast, is because I can test them fast without requiring anybody else.
That's amazing. No, that's the best of both worlds. So you're really able to just kind of put together,
Yeah, I can read an API doc to know if the data is available. And if I had to, I could write the script, and I can pick up the phone and call the founder of that company to get them to open up the API to support what I need them to do. I've done that many times. Clout. We built Flowtown. First thing I did was Joe Fernandez at Clout. Everybody remembers Clout, like for Twitter Influence Score. We were the first integration partner. I saw them announce on TechCrunch, reached out to them, had a meeting, and like 7 days later, Flowtown was integrated.
Dude, that's awesome.
They didn't even have an API. Yeah, we were like, hey, can you just like create a webhook and we'll just like
connect right in. Well, listen, let me, we're going to run out of time here. So I want to ask one question before we get to the lightning round, which is, you talked about the email that went out, which was you felt a mistake that you kind of learned from, maybe some, how do you weigh time versus getting something done? But what would you say in the clarity journey was one of your biggest failures that turned into like a really big learning moment that you've reflected on? It's been great for you and your growth. I mean, there's probably a lot of them, obviously. But what would you say was one of the greatest ones?
I mean, the thing is like, there's nothing that stands out other like that one really sucked. So for emotional, I mean, we would test a lot of stuff that wouldn't work. I'm not one to like get super bummed out. So I'm like, I can't, I'm like scanning my timeline of things we did. I mean, it was a quick, the thing with me is like Flowtown was 2.5 years. Clarity was 2 years. I mean, it was not a big space of time. So it's like trying to scan through everything that we did and like a big failure.
Maybe even in the business before that, maybe in Flowtown.
Oh, dude, I have tons of mistakes. I mean, the one with Flowtown, and you can Google Flowtown down. Actually, John, if you're still watching, go find that one for everybody. Not a lot of people don't even know about this one anymore. It's Down the Rabbit Hole and Back Again in Flowtown, Dan Martell. And it was on a site called Maple Butter I used to blog on. But the lesson I learned there, we got shut down. We essentially built the company like 20% month over month growth, hockey stick, after flat side, right? So we had the flat, then we had the hockey stick. We raised $750K, and we were in our round for a Series A. We're going to raise $4 million. And Facebook and data, and there's all this shit that happened. 2010, I want to say. There it is. Yeah, I don't know why it's on the Mars site. That's weird. Hopefully they link to my other posts, but and because we depended so much on third-party providers, dude, I think we talked about this with Demio, right? Like you guys were dependent on somebody else's platform, or no? You guys were switching out back-end plumbing, I think. Yeah. Mm-hmm. So I mean, similar thing. Like anytime you build on top of somebody else, especially like API. So I have a lot of people like Clarity could have easily been built on top of LinkedIn, right? Nope, it was not. It was a standalone destination site, and I was going to build that way because I learned my lesson with Flowtown. So Facebook changes the terms of service, essentially makes our product go to zero products being turned off in 3 months. Okay, so imagine if I said like video streaming thing is zero. All you've got left is what people know you for and your customer database. Go find another product to shimmy in there, and that's what we did.
Wow. So you guys had to pivot like that fast on the move. Basically.
I don't call it a pivot. It was a restart. Yeah. It was literally, I mean, it was the morning of just even the sequence was just bananas. We're like in the parking lot, listen to some Linkin Park, because we always like got our, I call it your paradisiac, right? Get your song, get your pump. We're going into the VC. And Wall Street Journal just broke this huge article about Facebook privacy and like gamers taking advantage of data and all this stuff. And our product was pretty like, give us an email address and we'll give you the social data on that account. And they were like, so like we go into the meeting and the guy, one of the partners asked like, well, have you read the Wall Street Journal? I'm like, yeah. And they're like, well, how does that affect you guys? We're like, oh, it's totally different. We don't do any of that, which was bull. We totally did. Well, we didn't know. I mean, the truth was it didn't affect us because nobody had told us it affected us at that point, but we kind of had an intuition. And then, that afternoon, the email from Facebook with any of their providers that were doing, because what they had a problem with is you were allowed to use the Facebook data within your app to make the experience better. You could not then allow that data to leave the app. And what we did is we were sitting between their emails and their email provider. So we didn't want to, so we did integration with MailChimp, Constant Contact, iContact, you name it. If there was an email, Salesforce, Batchbook, FormStack, Wufoo. If there was an email, we grabbed that hook and then gave you back the data. And Facebook said, Ixnay on the hombre. That's all done. No way, Jose. And yeah, you can read the story. It was crazy. I think what was lucky for us was I'd been an entrepreneur at that point for, I built and sold the company prior. Ethan at that time was like 26. I always thought he was like a little kid. So I think he's like 32 now, maybe 30, 32. So he would have been like 24 when we started Flowtown. So he would have probably been 26. And I just knew better to not react. Like at the end of the day, it is what it is. Accept it. If you need to go fucking cry, go cry. Tell me how long you're going to go cry for. And then when you come back, we're working, right? And I'm game with that. I tell this to founders all the time. Like, look, I'm not going to say that you can't be bummed. just time block it. Like, tell me you're going to be bummed till tomorrow at 5 p.m. and then call me up and we're going to crush it. Like, take the time.
That's
like
awesome.
Things happen, right? But don't be all like, I don't know when I'll be okay again. It's like, that doesn't work. So we just went to the whiteboard and that question, what are our assets? We had a really active blog, 350,000 uniques a month. So, content marketing's always been a strength. So like, we had a blog, we were known for marketing technology. We had a customer database. We had a ton of customers. What are some ideas that we could work on in a short period that we could announce that, because we had essentially 2.5 months before they were shutting us down. So we had 2.5 months to essentially test and build and swap and try to keep as many customers as possible.
Crazy. That's crazy.
Yeah.
Well, I'm glad you guys made it through though.
This is the crazy part. We built the revenue back up to where we were at within 12 months from that point. Wow. And then that's why we got acquired. And that's the funny part is I don't think we would have got acquired for the tech we built Flowtown was on. Originally. We got built for like V2, which was this kind of gift marketing platform that like VaynerMedia and Edelman and all these PR agencies started using for social gifting of physical products. Like, so we had the data, we had like all this stuff. We just had to restructure it. So
that's awesome to hear.
Yeah, it's a crazy story I don't get to tell very often, but it's been written about.
I really love also the fact that you said that you don't get too down when things go the wrong way, because they're going to constantly do that. But it sounds like
I'm going to tell you, if you say what's the one thing, I don't know. You're going to ask that. I think there's a lightning round or something. You know what? I'm going to wait. Yeah. I'm going to save it. A little bit of a tease.
Boom. I'll go through them right now, and that way you can say it because I'm excited to hear it. But let me ask you this: how much do you read during the week?
Every day, 10 pages minimum is like part of my ritual, and then typically a lot more than that because I got kind of like 3 reading modalities. Somebody asked me the other day, they were like, I know you read, where the hell do you find time with kids and all this stuff? And I read in the morning, physical books. I read at night. I listen in the car to books if I do long commutes, and I read in my hot tub, my Kindle. And I'm on my 3rd Kindle for the year for obvious reasons.
Love it. Keep dropping in the hot tub.
It just is. I'm like, when can they make a waterproof Kindle? At least my
Galaxy S8. Galaxy S8. What's your top book recommendation right now?
Top book right now, actually wrote it down. Oh, Ego is the Enemy by Ryan Holiday.
It's a great book. Ryan's amazing. What would you tell your younger self starting your business right now?
Get great at hiring. It's all about the people, period. Businesses aren't built by smart fucking one person. They're built by incredible teams. And I think it took me a while to really understand that.
Love it. Absolutely agree. What's one characteristic you've had to discover? Maybe this is what you're going to talk about before. One characteristic you had to discover on your journey that's made you a stronger entrepreneur.
Yeah, so this is part of my manifesto, which I'm going to share with all you guys. Manifesto. It's become the person who can deal. This is what you need to understand. Like I have people all the time, just as a byproduct of coaching high-performing SaaS founders, that they run into things. I mean, they're building big companies. When the numbers get, add on some zeros, like for people that came from near poverty, which is most founders, they didn't really come from a whole lot to all of a sudden being responsible for millions of dollars and sometimes hundreds of millions. Like when things happen, it can feel debilitating. And my default now, which I wish I would have learned a lot sooner, is be excited for the chance to grow. Like, don't wish that you didn't have problems, because then all you'd have is a lot of small problems, which means you have a small business, right? Mm. Like, you don't get, like Oprah said it once. She was getting sued for like $1 billion from the mad cow people because of some like TV show she did. And somebody said like, aren't you bummed out? And she's like, I'm grateful to be the kind of person that can get sued for $1 billion. I'm a black woman from like, this not logical that this is a thing. Like let's start there. Let's be grateful for that. And look, it's going to happen. And like, to me, become a person who can deal is really like wish to be strong enough to overcome it. Like that's the wish. I don't wish I don't have problems. I wish that I can grow big enough to overcome them, and that was like what I told Ethan when we ran into that. It's like, look, this is now your chance to prove if you're good or not. And if you're not, it is what it is and you're going to learn, but you're going to have to, like, no matter what you do in life, you're going to hit a ceiling. Like if you're the kind of person that wants to like kind of really squeeze life the way I do and like try to grow, you will hit a ceiling. And some people do hit it. And it's just true. Like they can't ever build a business more than $1 million is their cap or $5 million is their cap, and it's usually a psychological aspect, right? And I think a big part is because they don't wish that their problems were bigger because it doesn't make sense. But in doing so, you're kind of like you're wishing that you were better, right? So
that's amazing advice. I absolutely love that. I'm going to read the manifesto right after this. All right, one last question for you, Dan. One thing you're most looking forward to in technology upcoming?
3D printing. So everything I buy on Amazon, I can just print in my house. And the second one is ordering gourmet peanut butter cups using drone delivery. Those two things would just be fan-darn-tastic.
Is that your favorite food or something? That's
peanut butter is my Achilles heel. I love it. Well, peanut butter and chocolate. But I'll take peanut butter on its own. Yeah, I can't even like have it in the house. It's just like a no-go for me. Yeah.
That's awesome. Well, hey, listen, I want to thank you again for coming on. Does anyone have any questions while I get any final thoughts from you, Dan? Anything else you want to share? And if anyone has any questions, feel free to put them in chat. I'd love to answer them before we log off today. But anything else you want to share, Dan?
Well, John's got a SaaS churn problem. Which customers do I focus on? The successful ones, the ones who close. You always want to talk to the ones that close. I have a whole churn busting framework that would take too long to go through. But step one is, and it sounds counterintuitive, is turn off the auto cancel from your website. I think a lot of people do that because they want to be kind to their users, but you're not learning. So don't let your users cancel from the website. Force them to email you. Ask them what, and then give them options. This is the other thing is, if you ask them why they're canceling, if you have a little bit of an inclination of why, give them a list of options and then, or other, right? Like, most of our customers cancel for one of these 3 reasons or one of these 7 reasons, boom, 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 boom. And if it's something else, just let us know, right? And I'll get that canceled. And that'll give you the part. I mean, a lot of times, it's simple things that we as founders sometimes don't want to face, right? I didn't want to face the search thing. I didn't want to face, the experts, not everybody's an expert thing, right? But at the end of the day, if you have 10 people cancel and 8 of them say because of this reason, that's your hit list. That gets bumped up to the top. The ones that are good, that's the thing is the people that are good with your product are good. Like, not that you should ignore them. You should learn from them. You should learn what experience they went through to help with activation and onboarding, but focus on the ones that are kind of in the middle, right? I call them the somewhat disappointed, right? Like, those are the ones where if you can improve their experience, fix something that frustrates them, they become very disappointed, and then you actually have a product that gets the product market fit.
Right. And you said very disappointed, but you mean very excited or very...
Sorry, the question you'd ask them is, how would you feel if you could no longer use our product?
Got it.
So it's very disappointed to that question, which means they'd be bummed out. The ones that are somewhat disappointed means that like they haven't really gotten a lot of value and they just use something else.
Got it. Love it. Cool. I think that's exactly where we are too. We're kind of in that discovery phase right there.
Yeah, it's always
David asks,
kind of like what we do some great things for these people. There's a ton of other people, but we really need to like get the positioning nailed. And it really comes down to a messaging thing, like homepage to onboard. I'm actually working on a book right now, and that'll be a big component of it, of like the product story. And you know what? I'll just give you guys the old Dan Martell blog post version of it for everybody in case you need it now. So I'll just chat it over.
Oh, perfect. I'm going to open it as well. Guys, make sure you take these resources as well. These are absolute gold. David has a quick question. I'm going to be respectful of your time, so we'll end here quickly. But are there any new sources, like a new LinkedIn, that you're watching to mine and leverage right now? Any new content areas or sources?
My content consumption is very straightforward. I use Pocket, so I don't stop and read shit in real time. Like if I was you guys and you're reading these, I would just add them to Pocket, and then I add that to my reading time, because I've got ADHD hardcore. Like, people don't understand like how I'm a productive human being in society, nor do I. But I will say it's probably because of my systems I've built for myself. Yeah, I think just because I've curated my Facebook, like really curated it, I've got more than enough incredible content. And where it comes from, I actually don't pay attention because when it goes into Pocket, it gets normalized into a reading interface. So I can't really, I'm not like, I don't know if it's a blog or Medium or wherever it came from.
No problem. Totally understand. I'll check out Pocket too, but sorry about that, David. Hopefully you'll find something online there. But
if he wants something, David, tell me what content you want to learn about, and I'll tell you the best content for that.
There you go.
And you guys can all email me at dan@danmartell.com. Keep it short and sweet. As John knows, I do reply to my emails. But if you send me essays, Stephanie will reply to my emails.
Stephanie's awesome. Yeah,
she's incredible. She's the reason why I can even do anything is because she's there to block and tackle for me, and she knows what things to let through. Yeah, that's
awesome. Who's coming up with the best ideas on SaaS systems and apps?
This guy right here. People don't realize my Facebook page, every week I do with my iPad Pro, I like break down concepts on like SaaS that are different from my YouTube and different from my blog. I would say you really can't go wrong with anything SaaSter and Jason Lemkin. I mean, he's the man. Yeah, like it's amazing to see, and really just the content he's put in Quora. Like the guy is prolific. I just don't want to do that much work. He's definitely impressive there. And then David Skocker, like those are like my two favorite people in the space. And the truth is, there's actually some great podcasts lately, like SaaS Revolution, the thing with this other, I think SaaSter podcast is great. There's a ton of great podcasts on SaaS. But yeah, I definitely think there's a gap in the whole system, and that's what I'm trying to write. That's why I'm writing my book, which is going to try to like, how do you think about, attract, convert, expand, scale SaaS, not just like one piece. Like I feel like Jason's sales heavy, other people are marketing heavy, some people are product heavy, but like it's hard to get the full picture.
Love it. Awesome. Well, with that, guys, we will wrap up. Dan, I just want to say thank you again so much for coming on, sharing so much knowledge. It was an absolute amazing hour. So really appreciate your time. All of you guys, make sure to email Dan at Dan Martell if you have any other questions. Definitely utilize him. It's amazing resource. There's so much on YouTube that I follow a lot of your videos on YouTube, and just great content out there, guys. So definitely listen, follow Dan, and appreciate all you guys joining us today.
Awesome. Thanks for having me, Dave. We'll talk soon. Peace. Later, guys.
Later.